welcome to FitPros Live. I'm Meyer, Tapia, and I am a wellness coach and educator. I am head of wellness education at Stanford University, and this is a session on mindfulness and tools to both disconnect from what is not ours to hold, and also tools to connect to the most important aspects of our lives, of ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I'll share a little bit more about my own intro and my own background in a moment. But want to begin with just an invitation for you to check in with yourself, to give yourself what you need from this time. I know for me, when I log into things like this, especially in the middle of a workday, I'm definitely multitasking. I'm sort of listening, sort of doing something else, trying to maximize time. Most of us are short on that. If that is what you need to do, by all means, that's beautiful. And if you are at all able to shift gears a little bit right now, to just let yourself have a window, a pocket of time that is yours, that's really my intention or my desire for you to be able to unplug from notifications you don't need to get right now. Maybe put your feet up, get cozy, get something nice to drink, curl up with a journal, or sit in the backyard and listen to this, something that allows you to put your body in the space that says, this is my time to reflect, to reset, to have some intentionality around how I want to show up to my life. That's really what this workshop is about. So I invite you to put yourself in the space that allows for that most fully with where you are now. And I also want to just give a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going over the next hour-ish. We're going to talk a little bit about what mental health is and is not, what mindfulness is and is not, both very trendy terms, which ultimately I'm grateful for that these phrases are in the zeitgeist now and we're talking about it. And there are a lot of misconceptions too. So we're going to get clear on what we're talking about when we talk about mental health and mindfulness. We're going to get into a little bit of science around the breath and stress and what we do and don't have control over. Releasing some of the stuff that is outside of our control and really focusing our energy toward the agency we have to impact the way stress shows up in our lives. We're going to look at how important the words in our heads are, right? We are the only ones who are with us for this entire journey of life. Our voice is the one we hear most often. It had better be supportive. So we're going to look at how we even notice what we're saying to ourselves and how we edit if it's not helpful. And of course, most importantly, is looking at the practical how. We're not having a conversation today about our hypothetical, perfectly balanced lives where we have tons of time and energy and motivation for all the things. We're looking at our real, complicated lives as they are in this moment, beautifully imperfect, messy, and glorious. What actually works with life now. So forget the we're going to meditate for an hour every day, or we're going to start doing this or stop doing this. And we're focusing on realistic, tangible, practical tools that can make a real difference in this moment. So this is where we're headed. Take an exhale and settle into that. And I will invite you to check in with how you are in this moment. This is a really basic mindfulness practice, right? Because so many of our thoughts are existing outside of this moment, kind of still chewing on where we came from, thinking about what's next. In this moment, if you were to just name a word or two or three that capture how you feel right now, maybe jot that down for yourself. And notice a couple of things here as you identify your words. Notice how some of them may seem contradictory, like I'm excited and I'm scared. I'm grieving and I'm hopeful. I'm exhausted and I'm curious. Sometimes we get ourselves all tangled up in this clenchy, squeaky place, trying to make it all fit, trying to make it all make sense, trying to wrap it all up in a nice, neat bow. Like, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm burnt out, and I'm also glad to be here. It's okay to say that all of these things are true. More than one thing can be true. And there is something about exhaling into the and of it all that takes the edge off, that says, yeah, I'm burnt out and tired and exhausted, and I am grateful to be here. And some areas of my life are really painful, and some areas of my life are really beautiful, and all of this exists within me. There's a meditation teacher and author, Sharon Salzberg, who wrote a beautiful little essay on salt in water, and how if you put a teaspoon of salt in a cup of water and try to drink that water, of course, it's going to taste super salty, but good luck taking the salt out of the water. Good luck taking the stress out of a life. Fruitless exercise, just frustrating and a waste of time. However, if we increase the container, adding more and more and more water, suddenly that salt doesn't dominate so much. In fact, at some point, it might not even be noticeable. It's still in there. It's just not like the dominating thing. And I love that visual in regard to our stress or any of these other things that we may have named about how we are in this moment, the overwhelm, the grief, the exhaustion, the fear, the anxiety. They'll still be there. Good luck taking that out of a life. And also, to take that stuff out of a life also takes a lot of the meaning and the passion out of a life. However, if we focus instead on increasing our container, suddenly that grief or that anxiety or that fatigue, while it's still there, it's not the dominating thing. There's so much more to us than that. And we start to acknowledge that while this and this and this are here, there's also this and this and this and this. So a lot of what we're doing over this workshop today is focusing on how we can expand our container, focusing less on trying to get rid of or deal with or manage the stress in some way. The other concept that I'd love to invite you to hold here is this phrase, no feeling is final. And that's actually a line from one of my favorite poems. The poem is by Rainer Marie Rilke, Rilke. The poem is called Go to the Limits of Your Longing. And in that poem is a stanza that says, let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror, just keep going. No feeling is final. And I come back to this over and over and over again when I don't feel good in my physical body, when I'm sick or injured. This isn't how I felt yesterday or last week. It's probably not how I'm going to feel a week or a month from now. This is this moment. When I feel emotional upheaval, it's often true that this isn't how I felt when I woke up this morning. It's probably not how I'm going to feel at 9 o'clock tonight. This is this moment. So while incredibly obvious, this can be a helpful touchstone to come back to as we name how we are moment to moment, acknowledging the only thing we know for sure is that it's going to shift. So if how we're feeling in this moment is a little bit more on the painful or challenging side, we can acknowledge that this is how we feel. We can acknowledge more than one thing is true, and we can acknowledge that it's not how we're going to feel forever. So maybe we can loosen the grip a little bit and let all of this move through a little more easily. If how we're feeling in this moment is more on the pleasurable end of the spectrum, maybe this is a lovely moment. Our loved ones are here and we've got good food, and one of those moments where you're tempted to say, oh, I hope this never ends. But the minute we say that, we've kind of lost it because we've mentally jumped to the place where it has ended. Those beautiful, pleasurable moments are going to end too. So can we be more present for them and receive them while we're here, rather than cutting them off too soon with our fear that they'll end. That's kind of mindfulness. What we're talking about today is this idea of, can I be here with whatever is here now and stop fighting with it, wrestling with it, clinging to it, grasping it, and let it be my human experience for the moment on its way through. Also acknowledging that I am so much bigger than any one of these things. I'm so much more than any one of these physical sensations or thoughts or emotions that's coming up in me. I experience it, I observe it, of course, and it is not who I am. So here's a little bit more to my bio than just my day job and my headshot. Here's a little bit more of my life and context. You can see family there, my partner, my kid, my cat, one of my 3 black cats, my business there outside of Stanford. I have my own consulting and coaching business, which is just my name, sarahmeyertapia.com. You see a lot of ocean there. I live in Santa Cruz, California. I love to run. You see some of the schools I've gotten to teach and study at. And all of this is true and real. These smiles are authentic. And as we know, pictures are limited. There's a lot we don't see in the pictures. We don't see mental health in the pictures. We see the smiling, happy, shiny parts that are authentic, but we don't often share, hey, anxiety, my whole life, I love Zoloft, true story. I practice meditation and medication. We don't often see the moments of physical disability or challenge. It is true that I love to run and I run a lot. And it is also true that I've had some scary experiences and hospitalizations in this body that have made that tricky. We see the family happy. We don't necessarily see the divorce, right? You may or may not be able to tell that my partner is not the father of my child, and family has not always been seamless and easy. Whose is? So I'm saying this not to get into like my life story. I say this to normalize that none of us live life in a straight line, and that would be a boring life anyway. But also to just acknowledge we're under no illusion that in this workshop today, we're going to eliminate all of our stress and move along happily ever after. A lot of the challenges that I described in my physical body or my mental health or my relationships, these things occurred after I started learning and practicing meditation. It's not like we develop a mindfulness practice and the hits stop coming and life gets easy. However, what does shift, what I can say authentically has shifted in me profoundly, not the amount of challenges I face, but the way I show up to those challenges, as in how hard do they hit me? How long do they take me out for? What's the story in my head while I'm experiencing it? These are the things that have become much different. Where in the past there would have been a, what's wrong with me? Why is this so hard for me? This shouldn't be so hard for me. I should be handling this better. There's a little bit more of a supportive dialogue that I have had to practice that says, okay, this is happening. This is not how I will feel forever. In this moment, this is how I feel. What do I need to support myself? A more productive dialogue, right? So this is what we're here to practice today, is what do we have agency over? Not to get rid of the challenges of our life so much as showing up to our life more skillfully. So let's define what healthy means here in the context of this conversation today. We're not talking about how can I be happy all the time. That's actually not a healthy human. Think about some of the profound challenges we've experienced and witnessed in our news headlines over the last month, years, right? To take in all of that and smile and skip merrily along without a care in the world would indicate something's off. To be human is to respond appropriately to the moment and be able to find our way back to center. So we don't want to have our head in the sand completely disconnected from the moment. La, 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 I don't want to hear about it. I'm just going to think happy thoughts. We want to have our eyes open and live and engage in the world here. And we don't want to be so flattened by the news or by our personal experiences that we can't keep showing up and be of benefit. We want to have our eyes open, engage with our world, and hold our center. We want to be able to feel the whole range of being a human and come back to baseline. So if I were going to define mindfulness, it would really be along those lines of moment to moment awareness of the full range of my humanness, all the things I feel. There's not just one little pocket of feelings that are acceptable, healthy feelings for a human. Every response to the moment is part of our humanness. So the ability to notice that and be with that in a kind way and hold our center rather than getting swept into all our thoughts and feelings about our thoughts and feelings, right? Like we have an experience, grief or joy or fear, and then we judge ourselves and tell ourselves a whole story about why we should or shouldn't feel that way. Most of our stress is the result of all our thoughts and feelings about what already happened, all our thoughts and feelings about what might be next. But if we can acknowledge this moment right here, what is true, with less of that judgment, more curiosity, more kindness, more clarity, then we can find our center and hold it, because we're not living in story so much as we're living in what is true right here, right now. Mindfulness is also the practice of knowing what we're doing while we're doing it. So instead of washing the dishes and rushing and passive aggressively slamming things because we're thinking about all the stuff that we have to do once the dishes are done, and why do I have to do the dishes and why isn't anybody else doing the dishes? We are doing the dishes and noticing doing the dishes and the sensation of something dirty becoming clean and the motions that our hands make and the smell of the soap. I'm not saying this is how you have to do the dishes all the time, but that's just an example of how a moment that could be kind of mindless or agitating could be a moment of mindfulness. I'm eating and I know I'm eating. I'm working and I'm fully present with my work instead of thinking about how I should be home doing XYZ with the kids. I'm doing XYZ with the kids and I'm fully present with the kids and I'm not thinking about the work that I should be doing. This is what I mean. So many of us are living 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the moment constantly. We're never where our feet are. And there's this feeling of disintegration that's incredibly stressful. Stress reduction comes when we're where our feet are. So we're doing all the same things at all the same times. We're working, we're with our kids, we're eating, we're washing dishes, but we're present with it. So there's this taking the edge off of that pull to be somewhere else, or that divided attention that allows us, okay, I'm here now doing this thing. And in this moment now I'm here doing this thing. We're in all the same places at all the same times doing all the same things. And yet our stress is lower. We're also probably getting more out of each experience. We're probably contributing more to each experience because we're really there. Like our work is better, our relationships are better, our connection with our body and how much we eat is better when we're actually present in that moment. This is all lovely. We're going to talk about how, okay, how, because it's a challenging thing when we've practiced our whole lives being somewhere else or divided. But when we're talking about mindfulness today, this is what we mean. So to that question, okay, nice, but how? How do I be more mindful? Whenever we have conversations about practicing mindfulness, breath always, generally anyway, tends to come into the conversation. And it can be kind of cliche and admittedly annoying when someone says, take a deep breath in a stressful moment. Because we're like, I don't want to take it. It's kind of like when someone tells you to calm down when you're upset. It's the last thing you want to hear. There are 2 reasons why I come back to breath in my teaching a lot. And not just me, many, many teachers. And why it does work. And the annoying component of it is this expectation of, oh, I'm supposed to take a breath and my problems go away. What is that? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking a breath, and how we show up to our problems is different. And here's why. I mentioned earlier that so much of our stress is the result of all our thoughts and feelings about what came before this, all our thoughts and feelings about what might come next. But it is almost always true that in this moment right here, I'm okay. Doesn't mean that I'm great. Maybe I am, and I'm totally missing it because my mind is hypothesizing some tragedy. But at baseline, in this moment, I'm okay. There's a general safety that is true for all of us here, or we wouldn't be here if we were under some imminent threat or attack. The thing that we are so upset about is over. The thing that we are so afraid of has not happened yet and probably won't or may not. In this moment, I'm okay. So it'd be great if we could exist in this moment more often. How do we do that? Well, the breath happens to always exist in this moment. The breath can't be anywhere but this moment. Our minds are rarely in the present moment, but our bodies always are. And our bodies are always breathing. So to bring awareness to the breath is to instantly arrive in our bodies in this moment right now where we are okay. And then we can actually receive a moment of okayness. We can fill up on that okayness and experience it and support ourselves to show up to other moments that might be less okay later on, if and when they do arrive. Breath is just a really handy tool because it doesn't take any time. We don't have to stop what we're doing and go to a yoga class. We don't have to smoke a cigarette that's going to have other consequences that don't feel good. Like, we just bring awareness to something that's already here, this in-breath, this out-breath, and suddenly we're present and we can de-escalate and experience that we're okay. That's one reason why we talk about breath. The other reason we talk about breath is the relationship between breath and the nervous system. Many of us are moving through life in a very reactive state, feeling this urgency in every moment. We have to deactivate that nervous system response in order to be less reactive and more responsive, to be more thoughtful and take more time and perspective around handling situations. We can't do that if our nervous system is all activated. When we're holding our breath, our nervous system is all activated. Okay, so many of you may have heard of the vagus nerve. Biggest nerve system in the body, regulates all kinds of things. It's actually a bundle of nerves down by the pubic bone that goes straight up to the brain. And when the belly's sucked in and clenched and held tightly and we're breathing really shallow from the chest, that vagus nerve instantly recognizes that posture and sends the signal to the brain that, oh, we're under attack, right? We're guarding ourselves, we're protecting ourselves. There must be some kind of threat. So the brain then does what it needs to do to keep us alive, as in stop digesting because there's no time to go to the bathroom. Don't think about other people and their feelings. There's no time for that. Don't step back and get perspective. This is life and death. Imagine if a car is zipping around the corner, it's going to hit me if I don't jump out of the way. I don't have time to think about what is going on with the driver. Are they okay? Why are they going so fast? Or how do I feel? Am I okay? I think I'm afraid. There's no time to get perspective, to take a second and say, should I go left or right to get out of the way? There's no logical problem solving. There's just an immediate take the fastest way out to stay alive kind of processing in the brain, which is essential and beautiful when we are in that kind of moment. And for most of us, sucking in our stomach and holding everything tightly and not breathing deeply, we are in moments that are not imminent attack, life and death, but our brains are acting like they are, and we're not able to see other people's perspective and have compassion. We're not able to check in with ourselves. We have all kinds of digestive issues. We can't comprehend that there might be multiple ways to solve the problem, and we have time to solve the problem. When we exhale into the belly, let the belly be soft. The vagus nerve recognizes we must be safe. Now, if we add closed eyes to this, which you don't have to do, but it kind of takes it to a whole other level, that my front body is soft, all my vital organs are exposed, and my eyes are closed. The brain registers we must be safe because we wouldn't sit like that if there were any potential threat around. And when the brain knows we're safe, the brain can transcend that urgent reactivity and access all these other parts of the brain, like our ability to hold compassion and empathy, our ability to get perspective and consider how important is this right now? Let's kind of triage the situation. How much time do we have? How many other people are involved? Should we have some conversations? Let's logically address this with intentional action rather than urgent reactivity. So if we're going to say, why does taking a deep breath matter? It's not, of course, that it's going to do anything to change the situation, but it's that it changes how we show up to the situation profoundly. Suddenly, we show up to the situation grounded with awareness and perspective and thoughtfulness and compassion, with the knowledge that in this moment we're okay and we're going to address how to deal with this thing that's going on, with our entire brain turned on rather than just the part that says, get out, get out, get out, get out. So I've talked a lot about this. Let's give ourselves a moment to just practice this, to experience this. I'm going to invite you to join me for a little practice here. And I'm going to close my eyes. You are welcome to join me with closed eyes, or you can also just let your gaze rest somewhere soft and safe. But the idea is to pause from all the external stimuli and shift the gaze a little more inward and tend to ourselves in this moment exactly as we are. So you can sit in a way that is both relaxed and present, engaged, awake. And on your next breath in, I'll invite you to engage the spine a little bit, lift up through the crown of the head. And now as you exhale, softening through the face, smoothing the brow, relaxing the jaw, releasing the tongue from the roof of the mouth, letting all the little muscles around the eyes soften. Letting the shoulders start to drop away from the ears. Inviting a sense of ease to melt down both arms, through the joints, into the hands, into the fingertips. From the base of the skull, inviting a softening, a sense of ease to melt down the spine, spreading out across the entire back. Relaxing around the tailbone, the sits bones, the pubic bone, unclenching your seat and just receiving the support that's already under your body. Softening through the hips, down both legs, into the feet, into the tips of the toes. And now bringing your awareness to the center of your chest, acknowledging your beating heart, your breathing lungs, the aliveness of your body. Evidence there is more right than wrong in this moment. And now softening all the way into the belly, letting the base of the belly relax and receive the fullness of your breath. Starting to follow that flow of inhales and exhales through your body. Letting it gently anchor you here in this moment to receive whatever peace might be available right here. Breath in and breath out. Giving yourself a couple more full deep breaths. Receiving the spaciousness of this moment. And as you're ready, you can let your eyes float back open if they've been closed, folding back out into your space. And I'm going to offer up this question again. How are you in this moment? If you were going to name a word or two or three that captures how you feel right now, what might that be? Noticing perhaps if your words are different than they were a half hour ago. We're not going to say better or worse words, but different probably. And not because we did anything super magical or highly skilled, right? We just unclenched and took a few breaths, which can really shift how we feel in our bodies and in our minds. Again, evidence that no feeling is final. And also evidence, I find that really empowering and hopeful that this can really shift how we show up. And it's something that we have available to us all the time. We have more agency than we might give ourselves credit for de-escalating and showing up to a moment more skillfully. Any one of us at any moment in time could notice that we are spinning out and we are not breathing, and we can bring our awareness to our belly and exhale and turn on our whole brain and show up differently. I find this so empowering. And I also want to normalize and name that sometimes when we go inward, it's not lovely. Like when you are looking at this question, how am I in this moment? You might not be feeling all blissed out and zen. You might be feeling a little agitated or aware of pain that you weren't really noticing because you were moving so fast before. Like it's not always pleasant when we check in. This exercise is not about bringing ourselves to some happy place, although if it happens, great. It's more, can I really notice and check in with this moment and then show up to it better, tend to what I notice. If you are feeling like that practice is beneficial and like something you want to do more often, I'm just going to put my website in the chat right now for you. I host a free drop-in meditation every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Zoom. So if you would like to be guided at a specific time rather than getting yourself to do it on an app or whatever, warm welcome to click on that link and get the Zoom and pop in whenever you want. Also on that site, there's a meditation page that has some pre-recorded meditations. And then, of course, most of us are aware of an app, Headspace, Calm, Peloton, all kinds of places where you can listen to guided recordings. But we're going to talk about ways to practice kind of formally with those recordings or just stopping and paying attention to your breath for a while, but also the importance of informal mindfulness, which is without stopping what we're doing, taking a breath and checking in. And one of the things that we can check in about when we take that breath is, how am I talking to myself? What am I saying to myself? And is it supportive? Because many of us don't even stop to notice the words in our heads, but we're unconsciously criticizing, judging, telling ourselves things we would never tell someone we love. What's wrong with you? Why is this so hard for you? This should be easier for you. You should be handling this better. Why are you so happy? You don't deserve to be happy. We wouldn't say these things to people we love. And yet we've kind of practiced this way of talking to ourselves that it's the water we've been swimming in, the air we breathe in this culture. And if we just objectively take a look at that, we can recognize that it actually doesn't work. When we're criticized by others or by ourselves, we lose motivation, we're paralyzed, we're overwhelmed, we want to hide under blankets. It takes a lot of energy to recover from being criticized and judged. And if we're battling our own self all day long, it's exhausting and demotivating. Hence, at the end of the day, we do all kinds of self-soothing things just to feel pleasure for a moment, even if we have to pay for it the next day. Compassion, what we give people we love, right? I'm so sorry this is hard for you. I know that this is going to pass. You're doing a great job. May you have what you need, right? I'm so happy for you that you're happy. Whatever, that compassion, that's what gives us energy and a sense of direction to move forward. If I notice that I'm feeling emotional and insecure today when I check in my meditation, there could be the criticism of, why are you insecure? You're 42 years old and you practice mindfulness. You should be more confident by now. That's going to just make me feel worse and take me further away from being a confident, secure person. Compassion says, oh, I'm feeling tender. I'm feeling insecure. All right. May I have what I need? May I practice confidence? May I know my worth? Like, that's energizing and actually takes me in the direction of being a more confident person. Another question we can offer ourselves when we check in this moment, like, ooh, in this moment, I'm feeling a little insecure or I'm feeling a little anxious. What would make my past self proud and my future self grateful? This is a really lovely distinction between what is compassion and what is indulgence. Because sometimes we're afraid of being compassionate because that might mean we'd like shirk all our responsibilities and eat chocolate all day. Time and a place for that too. But this question is genuinely saying, like, okay, past me would be so proud that I wrote the book, that I went grocery shopping instead of ordering food again, that I made that phone call that I've been afraid of, but know I need to do. Future me is going to be so grateful I put gas in the car last night so I don't have to do it on the way to work. Future me is going to be so grateful that I set down the fourth drink before I went to sleep. It's things like this, right? The unsexy but really powerful choices that are true caring for ourselves. Future me might be really grateful that I took 3 deep breaths before I sent the text. It can be life-changing, as simple as it is. So if we talk about wanting to be more mindful people, wanting to be more present, less reactive, more intentionally taking action from a grounded place, we have to practice being more mindful, taking more intentional action. Like, we have to practice it. What we practice grows. Whatever we're good at now, we've practiced for a long time, right? I'm great at anxiety. I've been practicing anxiety my whole life. I'm great at criticism. I've been criticizing myself my whole life. So if I want to be more mindful, I have to practice being more mindful. It's the same thing. The more we practice it, the more that becomes the default, the more that feels more natural. So we've talked about formal practice of mindfulness. We did that together. I gave you some recordings, an invitation to do that with me live. You've got apps, you've got all kinds of ways that you can set aside time for yourself to pause and check in. We talked a little bit about informal mindfulness practice, as in what can be a cue for you to stop, check in, take a breath. Notice how you're talking to yourself. Rewrite the words in your head if they're not helpful. We're not responsible for our first thought, but we are responsible for our second thought. So if your first thought is not supportive, change it. Okay, but how do we remember to do this? Pick something in your life that you do often, and that is going to be your cue to take a breath. Something that you do mindlessly, right? It could be washing the dishes, or even better, washing your hands. We do this so many times in a day, and it's very short, but usually we're washing our hands thinking about where we're going, and as soon as we're done washing our hands, what if we just took that moment that we're washing our hands and felt the water and smelled the soap and felt our feet on the ground and took a breath? It's like a little mini reset. I call these micro doses of mindfulness during the day. Every time I'm about to send a text, can I take a breath first? Or before I open my laptop, can I take a breath first? The key to this is finding a way to remember, because what we practice grows stronger. If we always turn left, we need a big blaring sign that says, go right, until we've done that enough times that we remember we're going right now. We're doing this now. So that big blaring sign might be a sticky note by the faucet that says breathe when I wash my hands. It could be a reminder that goes off on my phone. It could be a picture of something beautiful that reminds me who I want to be and what I want to practice. But these are the unsexy but critical little details that aren't big and hard. They're just concrete, specific things that put it in front of our face enough times that we see, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now. And eventually that becomes who we are. So the last thing I want to say before we wrap up here is that language matters. I teach a 10-week course on behavior change. I coach a lot of people who want to make changes. I want to be more mindful. I want to start meditating, or any other number of things. And the number one difference between people who successfully make a change and who don't is language. When the shoulds and the supposed tos and the have tos come out, those are disempowering victim words. I know I should meditate. I really should practice mindfulness. I know I'm supposed to meditate. They imply someone else is telling us to do it. They imply someone else is standing over our lives, wagging a finger, telling us what we should and shouldn't do. And if you're a rebel like me, as soon as you hear that you should do something, you don't want to do it, even if it was your idea. If you're more of a pleaser, you'll do the thing that you should do to get your gold star until you realize no one's watching, no one cares. It's not really yours anyway. It's not sustainable. The truth is there's very little in life we have to do. Almost nothing that we have to do. I don't have to put gas in my car. I choose to because I want my car to work. I don't have to go to work. I choose to because I want a paycheck, or I like my job, or whatever, but no one's making me. So let's move away from that victim language that we have to do anything and say, I'm choosing to take a breath when I wash my hands because I want to build this ability to be more present. I want to be calmer. I want to whatever. I'm choosing to turn off my phone before I go to sleep because I want to get better sleep. The beautiful thing about this framework is we don't have to lie to ourselves and pretend we're excited about it. It doesn't depend on the mood we're in. We can be brazenly honest and say, I want to drink this 5th drink of the evening. I'm choosing not to because I want to feel great when I wake up tomorrow. Future me is going to be glad I did. I don't want to meditate. I'm not in the mood. I'm choosing to practice meditation anyway because I want to build this skill. So if that's a helpful framework for you, please hold that and take that. Remember, this is your one wild and precious life in this body on this planet, and you get to choose what you want to practice. As long as you own your choice and connect it with what matters to you and what you really want to get out of it, you will be much more likely to do it for you and no one else. And yet somehow it benefits everyone around you. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself in this time. I hope you found something helpful to take with you. Again, I'm Sarah Meyer Tapia. My website is my name, You can email me there. You can learn more about meditations and coaching. Get that Zoom link, pop in and join me on the cushion. I'm wishing you all well. Thank you for having me, and take good care.